This is one of the most anticipated lens releases on the Nikon Z mount in the past 12 months. And previously, when it was released on Sony, one of the most frequent comments I got is, when is it coming out for Nikon? Or I hope it's coming out for Nikon. And that makes a lot of sense because Nikon's first party comparable lens to this costs $3,000. So it's 3 times the price of this lens. And even their comparable budget version of the lens, which is only an f1.8 lens, costs almost $1,000. And whether it be on Nikon or Sony, this lens has some really interesting image quality traits that I really haven't seen in other lenses out there. And the biggest ones are the sharpness straight from f1.2. This lens is razor sharp and you do not need to worry about stopping it down. And the other one is the overall color and contrast you get out of the lens. The images come out of this lens, whether you're shooting JPEGs or RAW, they look almost completely finished without editing. And one of the biggest risks with this lens, since it gives you these images that look like they're edited already, is over editing. Because if you edit like you do with most other lenses, you're gonna get this surreal image with over the top colors and a little bit too much contrast. And I think these finished images or almost edited images straight out of camera that you get with this lens are one of the most unique qualities that this lens offers. This is the Viltrox 35mm f1.2 lens. I'll put some links in the description down below to the best pricing I could find on the lens and who currently has it in stock. In full disclosure, Viltrox did send this lens out to me at no cost to myself. This is not a paid or sponsored video, and they had no say in the making of the video. One of the obvious headline features of this lens is the fact that it is an f1.2 lens, but it's not uncommon, particularly with more budget-friendly f1.2 lenses, that you get f1.2, but you kind of think of it as a bonus mode. The images aren't that sharp, and you have to stop it down to get maximum image quality. With this lens, that's absolutely not the case. Right from f1.2, this is a very, very sharp lens, not only in real-world results, but even on a test chart. It is extremely sharp, particularly in the center of frame. When you stop it down to f1.4, you will get a slight tweak in sharpness, which is noticeable on a test chart, but in real world results, you really can't tell the difference between f1.2 and f1.4. But importantly, as you continue to stop the lens down, it doesn't get any sharper because at f1.4, it is razor sharp. Now, when we look at the corners aren't quite as sharp as the center, but they are still exceptionally sharp, particularly for a lens that goes to f1.2. So right from f1.2, you're going to get very good image quality from the center of the frame all the way to the corners. If you do want a little bit more sharpness in the corners, you can stop it down a little bit. But in most situations that you're shooting at f1.2, you've got such a shallow depth of field anyways that the fact that the corners aren't razor sharp doesn't really matter. Stop it down to f4, f5.6 if you want to shoot product photography, interiors, and you want that depth of field that will cover most of the frame. Looking at color and contrast, this is the other place that this is really interesting. You do get near maximum contrast right from f1.2, so it's not a lens that you have to stop down to really improve the contrast to any meaningful amount. The other thing is the colors. You get these really interesting, almost surreal, futuristic, poppy colors at times. Now, I think this is going to be personal preference, and the JPEGs almost don't have to be touched at all rather than lifting the shadows or maybe changing the exposure a little bit. And so I think this lens, even though it's considered a Pro Series lens, I think it really does suit amateur photographers that aren't great at editing images and want something really interesting and punchy straight out of camera. This lens is going to give that to you in a way that I really haven't seen from any other lens. Looking at the distortion performance, the lens does exhibit a little bit of mustache distortion, particularly if you get straight lines close to the edge of frame. This will show up. You might notice it in architecture or real estate shots. In most real world shots, you're not going to notice it at all. And I expect that there will be a profile to correct this in Lightroom at some point. The vignette performance is moderate to heavy at f1.2 and f1.4, but it's definitely not as extreme as most f1.2 lenses out there. It significantly improves from f2 to f2.8. From f4 on, it stays about the same with a moderate amount of vignette, but this is easily correctable in Lightroom, even if you don't have a profile correction. The chromatic aberration performance on the lens is excellent, particularly for an f1.2 lens. I would say it is the best f1.2 lens chromatic aberration performance I've seen. Even on a test chart and in high contrast scenes, I'm not seeing any meaningful amount of chromatic aberration. And looking at longitudinal chromatic aberration, which is a change in color cast before and after the plane of focus, this is near perfect, even at minimum focus distance, which is the most challenging test for longitudinal chromatic aberration. It was hard for me to spot any. If there is any, it's very minor, and it's not going to affect any real-world results. The flare performance is also excellent and well controlled. You get nice soft flares with light coming into the lens. You do get some slight blooming around the highlights when it's wide open. I think this looks really nice and cinematic. As you stop it down, it cleans that up, but the flares don't desaturate the image or wash out the image at any point. So for me, the flare performance is also near on perfect. Close-up image quality is pretty good. I'd love it to be a little bit closer. It has a minimum focus distance of 34 centimeters or 13 inches, but the images are very sharp at minimum focus distance, and you can take some pseudo macro or reasonably close-up images, and they look pretty good. Looking at the bokeh and the autofocus areas, really nice, soft, and pleasing bokeh. It's mostly round, but you do get lemon shapes near the edge of frame, particularly if you're wide open and you get very close to your subject. As you stop it down, the lemon shapes go away and the bokeh becomes reasonably round. That's because it has an 11-bladed aperture, which means it stays round with no geometry throughout the entire aperture range. If you're shooting video, you will notice there is some pretty extreme focus breathing. It's definitely not the worst I've seen, but it isn't great either. So focus pulls are going to have a fair bit of zooming in and out. And even when you're using it for photography, if you miss focus or it's trying to find the subject, it can jump around and be a little bit distracting. Not the worst I've seen, and the comparable first-party Sony lens is worse, but it's just something to be aware of. Looking at the autofocus performance and starting with photography, in the single point mode, you'll find it's very quick, very accurate, and absolutely in line with any of the Nikon first-party lenses. Then we use it in that same mode and we just use the touch function. We're finding very similar. It's quick, it's snappy. And then using the autofocus area subject detection, I think a very, very similar performance. I don't think you'd tell this from any Nikon first-party lens. See here when I'm walking towards the camera, you see it locks on my eye, particularly in simple situations. It really doesn't have any problem tracking me. What I did find is when I did do it in the high-speed mode, the camera did seem to drop some frames, but that seemed to be related to the processing power of the camera. Because even when I'm running at the camera in these shots, you'll see it keeps me in focus. It's not losing focus. This is in photo mode, but I'm not actually taking the photos because I wanted the screen recording to not have blackouts or drop frames. Once I started taking the photos, even when I'm running at the camera, it did drop the occasional frame, but most of them were in focus, and I think the running ones were actually just as good as the walking ones. Switching into the video mode, just using the tap to track to change the focus point. Here you can see it's pretty quick, it's pretty accurate. Here's a little bit more complicated situation. You can see this is working reasonably well. And I think this is once again in line with the Nikon first-party lenses. See here, it tracks the subject pretty well. And now this one, you'll see that it isn't quite, it does drift at times, but this is the camera, not the lens. When I was doing these tests, I was also using the Nikon 40mm f2 just as a comparison, and I found across the range of tests it was very similar. What you will find when you look at some of these autofocus tests is sometimes the focus point does drift. This is just the way the Nikon subject detection is at this point. But what you will find is when it does drift, because the Viltrox lens is so quick, these VCM motors are very quick, you will get some pulsing or hunting, which doesn't look great for video. Something I would do if I'm using this lens for video is I go into the menu system under the pencil icon and G5 under video, that's your autofocus speed. I would turn that all the way down just to slow those motors down, just give you a little bit more of a cinematic focus pull. Looking at the build and handling on the lens, it's designed to be a pro-level lens, and it's part of their Lab series, which is the highest series in the Viltrox range. You've got an all-metal body. You even have a display on top, which gives you your focus distances. You can have an autofocus manual focus switch. You've got 2 programmable buttons, and you have a clickable and declickable aperture ring. And the aperture ring click is nice and satisfying. You're also gonna have a rubber gasket for weather sealing. And on the back of the lens here, you'll see there's a USB-C port for updating the firmware. It comes with a plastic lens hood and a pinch-on plastic lens cap, and it has a filter thread of 77mm. It really is overall a very nice pro-feeling lens. And in line with other Lab series lenses, it feels well above the price point. So while I'm not here to say that Viltrox 35mm f1.2 is as good as Nikon's 35mm f1.2, which costs $3,000, the reality of it is that lens by Nikon is out of most people's budget. This lens is going to get you a similar set of specs and a not dissimilar image quality at an absolute fraction of the price. So for anyone who's after a super fast 35mm lens on the Nikon Z mount, then I think this is an excellent option. Now, this is not the only Lab Series lens they've released for the Nikon Z mount, and I've just thrown a video on screen now. This is their 135mm f1.8 lens. This is an absolutely excellent lens, another one of my favorites. Now, it doesn't have the versatility of a 35mm, but you are going to get some extremely dramatic images with that lens. And once again, it's a fraction of the price of the comparable Nikon lens.